How many exorcisms have you done since that first one, would you say?
Dozens.
And what's the kind of process for exorcism? People, and I'm, we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, but what's sort of the flags? You mentioned lacking ability to control of one's body is like a very big flag, meaning that could be that
the
demonic
three typicals
possession.
are knowledge of unknown things, sometimes foreign languages, superhuman strength, and an aversion to holy things. Those are the three like classic benchmarks. But there can be, I had one case up in Kentucky. It was a guy up in a halfway house just across the border. And I didn't even know he was dealing with demons. Somebody just called me, back when I was up in Nashville. It was only like an hour drive. And they said, he just wants help. He levitated off the couch while I was praying with him. So right away, I'm like, not mental illness, clearly.
You saw that?
Yes.
How far off the couch was he?
1.5 feet.
Was he like sitting cross-legged or what did that?
No. He kind of went into a trance. His eyes rolled back in his head, and then his core lifted up and his limbs were flailing backwards like a puppet. And I just got up and walked out of the room and said, nope, not doing this here. This is not my home turf. I didn't expect this. So waited till he came back down and said, you need help, but you have to come to the church. And it's going to be a scheduled thing. That's when the process begins. In his case, the USCCB requires that I have, the Code of Canon Law says I have to have moral certitude there's a demon present. The USCCB's interpreted that to mean I have to have a physical done on the person and a psych evaluation. I think we're one of the only countries that requires both.
And is that to rule out that this is not like schizophrenia or some trick, but that this is a legit demonic activity that needs an exorcist?
Yes.
And that can't be treated by a healthcare professional, like a mental health professional or something.
But, they hide under mental illness too. So that's not a guarantee they're not there, even if they get a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But I said, look, this guy, no mental illness makes you levitate off the couch. So we don't have to do the psychological. Clearly it's not mental illness. He should still have a physical and make sure he's healthy. So, like his body would, because it's very stressful to go through a deliverance like that. But then you go forward and you go and perform the rite.
So I have a question, because when you're just walking through the streets, as an example, or like in daily life, like I've never seen somebody levitate off the ground in a demonic display, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like the devil almost was taunting you, or like he knew you were an exorcist and he doesn't like you, and he did that in front of you specifically, like on purpose. Is there some pattern there about how the devil chooses to do these crazy antics?
Well, generally speaking, if you're an exorcist that's starting, you're fresh, all the parlor tricks come out. And it's meant to intimidate and to frighten. After a year or two of doing this, they know this is not going to impress the exorcist, and they kind of diminish to the point of not a big deal. But if I bring in a young priest who wants to be a witness in the room or a bodyguard for me, all the tricks come back out, because it's like, oh, there's somebody new to impress here. And that's not always the case, but that's kind of what I've seen. And what I've talked to other friends who do this, the same thing. It's like after a while, this guy has already seen all this. It's not going to make any kind of impression on him. But the best example in the scriptures is the Gerasene demoniac. So when we look at that example, that guy was cut off from civilization. So division. He was running around naked, public nudity, and he's violent. He's breaking his chains. He's smashing things on the rocks. And when we look to our society today, those three things are through the roof: public nudity, division, and violence. And when I see that on the news at night, that's the first thing I say is like, he's having a heyday here.
That's just like, meaning when we see some of these crazy protests that even involve some of those things, that could just be straight up, that is demonic activity.
The way people present themselves in public. Yeah. People come up to communion, they're barely dressed. And it's like, he's having greater influence than ever over because I think we think we're an advanced society. We're smarter than those former generations. We know better. And so we've let our guard down in some way with all these other things. And but cumulatively, when you look at it, we're much worse off now than we were before.
There was just the Grammys event a couple days ago from when we're filming this, and Kanye West came. I don't even know if he.
I saw the story. I
Yeah.
didn't see the.
Well,
I didn't see
no
the.
need to see it, but he literally had his quote unquote wife, unclear their actual bond, but literally naked, in full flight, everyone, for everyone to see, parading her like that. And I think there was a round decry of it, people decrying it, like, this looks demonic. This looks demonic. Do you think that's?
How could it not have an influence?
Yeah.
I mean, how could it not? I saw the story in a New York newspaper that ran a story, and of course they didn't show her, but she was on the red carpet, and all the there's a league of photographers all photographing her. So he dragged her out in the public naked and put her on display like a dog,
Like a dog.
like a pimp.
Like a pimp.
And they all just shot their pictures of her.
And posted them.
This poor woman, I mean, what kind of self-dignity does she have left after that? I can't imagine going home then and thinking, like, that was a good day. And then for weeks, you're going to hear about it in the news of everybody posting your poor body, putting all over.